And when boys become boys, how they hide their sensitivity or they suppress their feelings to fit into this gender norm of being a boy. So, how can parents recognize when a boy is suppressing his feelings, and how can we respond without shaming him?
I think that's a great question. And I think one of the things, and parents are actually the best positioned to do this because you know your kids better than anyone. And so one of the things you can do is just kind of watch for notice unusual behavior, especially with younger kids, but adolescents as well. I'll start with the younger kids just because it's easier to talk about it. But like it's kind of like when a 5-year-old is telling his friend a secret, and they're not very good at like whispering, and so you can totally hear it. And I think that, when younger kids are trying to hide that they're upset, you can still tell. So for parents to just trust their instincts, when you see your kid behaving in ways and you're like, oh, that seems like something's wrong, ask them what's going on. And you can just say, oh, I've noticed you're not very, oh my goodness, there's a great example actually of a boy doing this with another boy in my book, right? And so one of the boys was feeling a little sullen, a little downcast while they were playing. Two boys were playing together, and his friend says, you seem a little bit sad or unhappy today. And the boy says, yeah, well, I miss my mom. And his friend says, oh, that's okay. You still have your friends. And they just continue playing. And eventually both of them are running around and fine, but just kind of validating, noticing, validating it, and being able to kind of say, oh, I've noticed this about you. You don't seem quite yourself. Not that we expect them to be like happy and, excited all the time, but just like if something seems off, like they can talk about it and they want to talk about it. So kind of starting from this understanding that boys can tell us what they need as long as they sense we're actually interested. And to kind of give maybe a little bit of a contrasting example, another boy I spoke to during his kindergarten year said that, he was new to the class and being excluded by all of the other boys because he was new. And so he was really unhappy and struggling, and he tried to tell his mom. And when he told her that the boys were leaving him out, she said, oh, I think you're just joshing. Like, I think you're just kidding. And don't worry about it. And I was like,
She dismissed his
oh,
feelings.
exactly.
Oh
And
no.
he goes, she didn't believe me. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And so it's just like, they, at that time, and actually at all ages, as Mr. Rogers tells us, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And so we can help kids to mention these things, and we can give them not only language, but permission to say, what's going on for them, and not to have it all figured out and not to solve it for them, but just to have them be able to talk about it and talk it through. Just that act of being able to share what they're experiencing can be very comforting. One of the 12-year-old boys actually said to me when he was talking about why he wished he had a best friend, he just said, just that feeling that someone else understands and can relate to what you're going through, he said, it's kind of comforting. Right. So
Yeah,
then they
we
know
all
they're
need
not
that.
alone. Exactly. Exactly. And so that's one of the things that parents can do that can be very, very powerful, is just being there and just listening. And that, and again, as someone who is a fixer and rushes in and tries to fall in, I can reassure parents, like, you don't actually need to fix anything. In fact, they don't really want you to fix it for them. But if you just kind of can be there with them in that moment, it can be that can be the most helpful thing.
Thank you for saying that as a fixer yourself, because I often say that to parents and they're like, I'm not sure they totally believe me. Like, you could just listen. Listening does a lot, it does so
Totally.
much.